This is Focus with Jack Caudill.
Good evening, I'm Jack Caudill. Welcome to this month's edition of Focus, kind of a special edition this month. We're going to be talking to former Black Hills Fox Sports Director Jamie Zepp, fresh back from his journey along the Appalachian Trail. And you probably remember Jamie from his 16 years as sports director here at Black Hills Fox. He started here back in 2002, then left for the adventure of a lifetime earlier this year, back in March, when he went on to hike the trail. That is a hike that starts in Springer Mountain in Georgia, ends in Katahdin, Maine, and that was 2,190 miles between those two spots. Took 6 months, and 5 days later, he is done. He is back here in Rapid City. First of all, Jamie, welcome. Congratulations on finishing the hike, and I will be asking the questions today, not you this time.
I'll make sure to answer to the best of my ability. So it's good to be home. It's been it feels a lot longer than 6 months.
Absolutely. Let's go back and start at the very beginning of this. You've been doing TV sports for decades, even before you were here at KEVN. So where did the idea come from to do something this huge, this massive, hiking the Appalachian Trail?
Well, 4 years ago when I turned 40, a friend and I decided to do something out of our comfort zones, and the Appalachian Trail ended up a small section of it, 50 miles to be exact, 10 days out there in Shenandoah National Park. And when I did that, something happened out there that I can't really explain. I like to say I came back a better version of myself, and within a year I won a regional Emmy Award after that. So it just seemed like there was something there, and every year after that, the call to go back got stronger and stronger, and so finally I was like, yeah, I got to do it.
So when did you finally get into your mind, yeah, I'm doing it, this is a done deal?
I think about 2.5 years ago was probably when it really kind of sunk in. It become a bit of an obsession. I was doing some research, a lot of YouTube videos of people who actually have been out there and putting themselves through the grind and all that kind of thing. So I just had been studying and kind of taking notes and picking up some things here and there, and just kind of all came together.
So what kind of preparation? Once you decide I'm going to go, what kind of preparation has to be done? I'm sure there's a lot of equipment you got to buy, a lot of gear you got to have ready to go. What physically do you do to get ready for something like this?
Well, you know, the equipment was definitely a big part of it. And last summer, I did a small section of the Centennial Trail just outside of Rapid City, and 55 miles of that one. Chance to test the gear to make sure everything works the way that it's supposed to. Water filters, tents, you know, the air mattresses, all that kind of thing. Physically, I probably should have done a lot more than what I did to do that, but I think that actually was secondary to making sure that the mental preparation was in the right order. You tell yourself, okay, I'm going to freeze. I'm going to be miserable. I'm going to be wet. I'm going to walk through mud. I'm going to do all this stuff that's going to test every part of your being. And so mentally, I was like, okay, this is going to be bad, but it's going to be even worse than what I imagined. And so to have my mental state in the right working order was far more important, I think, than the physical.
So getting that mental state ready to go, when you were on your way down there, were you excited about this? Were you nervous about this, or what was to come? What was going through your head at that point?
Scared out of my mind, you know, because I went down there with the almost the sole purpose of finishing. You know, a lot of people go down there wanting to commune with nature and having this as kind of their lifelong dream. For me, it was about finishing, and so the idea that, you know, getting injured or getting run off trail or running out of money, all those things came into play. You know, you let those voices come into your head where it's like, oh my gosh, are you going to make this? And so there was a lot of fear involved in that. But I had to quiet those voices and just say, we'll just take it a day at a time. We'll do what we can do, and, you know, hopefully we'll be able to be on the other end of it at the top of Katahdin.
Now you get down there at the trail down in Georgia. For people who are not familiar with the Appalachian Trail, is this like the Mickelson Trail? Is this a wide open, nice, fresh, flat thing? Does it vary wildly from spot to spot to spot?
When you start on the southern end of it, it's very well traveled. So there are a lot of spots where it's very worn in, and the volunteers, the trail clubs who kind of maintain these trails do such a great job initially, put so much work into it. And then the farther north you go, things get a little crazier. Roots, rocks, you know, mud, sinkholes, just, it gets a little crazy in some spots, but there are wide parts of the trail, and then there are thin parts of the trail that are on the edges of going over the side, and those get a little interesting at times too.
So how isolated are parts of this? Are parts of this out in the middle of nowhere? Are parts of this going through the middle of town? How does all this work? Because that's a long way to go.
Yeah, you can't, you can kind of plan out your meals or your food stops, your resupplies, about every 2 to 3 days if you plan it correctly, because you're near a town, every couple of days or 4 days. Like the most we did was 6, where we didn't have a town nearby. And so there's an entire economy around this, hostels and these trail towns that know you're coming through. You might have a couple of miles where you go through an area of towns or on near roads. And there is some isolation. There would be days where the people I was running with, we wouldn't see anybody from sun up to sundown, and then you get to the end of it and you're at your camp that day, and that's when you end up seeing some of the people.
And so you get down there and get started. How soon into this hike did the magnitude of this really hit home? Like, okay, I'm 5 miles in now. Oh my God, I got that much more to go.
Probably 30 minutes into it. Within the first 30 minutes of being on the trail, I got hailed on. And so it was kind of like the hiking gods were saying, "You're in for a treat there, buddy." And then 2 days later it snowed. I woke up to snow on the ground, which was kind of a shock. And then, the farther I got, it felt like the more pressure there was, because I'd put so much pressure on myself to make sure that I finished it, that every step was like, okay, don't injure yourself. Don't, do something stupid and fall off the side of something. So, it did. There was more pressure the farther that I went.
Now, you talk about don't injure yourself. How did you hold up physically for that long?
High pain tolerance. There were some days where it would take me, if I rolled off of my sleeping pad and needed to get up in the morning or even go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, where I was in the entrance of my tent, and it would probably take me a good 30 seconds, I kid you not, to stand up straight. That the pain in the knees was so severe that I knew I was going to get zinged, and so I was trying to do everything I could to avoid that pain, and it didn't happen as much as I wanted. So definitely a lot of pain involved, and it still hurts today.
Is that knees, feet? What hurts on you now, and what hurt on you most when you were out there?
Definitely. Well, it started off with the back. The back was carrying a 36-pound pack plus food was a strain on the back, because I didn't prepare myself physically as well as I should have. The farther north I went, the one knee started to go, so I was favoring it with the other leg. And then I think that started that knee to kind of go downhill fast. So both knees hurt. Walking up and down stairs right now hurts. I have to lean on the handrail as much as possible. And that's I understand, according to some people who've actually done it before, probably about 2 months before I'm normal-ish again. But yeah, the feet hurt, the joints hurt, but mainly it's in the knees and the feet.
How about the mental challenges? You talk about the physical challenges. The mental, I can imagine, would be as tough or tougher sometimes to get up and just, I got to plod on. I don't want to, but I got to do it.
Yeah, a month and a half in, on my birthday, no less, April 26th, I remember it had been raining for 5 consecutive days. And so the trail was muddy already, and so you would spend twice the amount of energy to get the same amount of distance. And so I got over the top, I believe it was Bald Mountain, and on the way down, it started raining again. And one foot slipped, went into a puddle, so that foot was wet. Then I started hearing a buzz on my shoulder, which is where I carried my phone. That had gotten wet inside the Ziploc bag I was carrying it in, and that had burned out. And so I was starting to redline a little bit, and then that other foot slipped and went into a puddle too. And at that point, I literally broke. Like I screamed into the sky as loud as I could, and let's say a word that I can't say on television.
And I appreciate you not saying that on television here.
Went another 100 yards and 200 yards, and there was a fire. Somebody had made a fire in this downpour. I couldn't believe it. And so I warmed myself, and not 10 seconds into that, was that you that just, yeah, that was me. Oh, you scared the heck out of us. And So another 100 yards, I was at a road crossing and bribed the guy who had built the fire. He had brought his truck out, and I said, I got $35 in my pocket right now, and it's yours if you take me into town right now. And so he took me into town. I gave him the $35. He gave me 15 back, and he's like, get your mind right. And so I spent two days in Irwin, Tennessee, buying a new phone and reinvigorating myself. And from that time, I may have been annoyed with the rain, but I spent more time laughing at the rain because I had built myself back up after that break.
All right, talk about some of the challenges. We'll talk about some of the upsides of a trip on the Appalachian Trail when we return with this month's edition of Focus. I'm Jack Caudill. Welcome back to this month's edition of Focus. This month we're talking to former Black Hills Fox Sports Director Jamie Zepp, fresh back from a 2,190-mile hike down the Appalachian Trail. Talking about lots of challenges, but I imagine there's got to be a lot of rewards, a lot of high points along the way. So what are some of those high points where you think, man, this is worth it?
Yeah, probably the views are absolutely amazing. Even though it was the last view of the entire trek, 2,190 miles in on top of Mount Katahdin, it was getting cold. It had been cold for the past few days because of how battered we were with everything else going on. Couldn't have had a nicer day to summit. There wasn't a cloud in the sky, and you could see for miles. So getting the chance to see those views, to see some of the people that you meet out there are definitely a huge highlight of the trail. There are some amazing stories out there. I hiked with a man who had just retired from teaching. He was a high school art teacher, and he used to be a competitive motorcycle racer in his youth, and 64 years old, and he would walk me under the table because I was one of the slower hikers out there, but he would just plow through it. And it was fun to meet those people and just kind of get to know a handful of folks that just make the trail.
Now, you went down there by yourself, but do you hook up with these groups out on the trail and hike with them for weeks, months?
Yeah, there was a group of 4 of us, probably after the first month, that we ended up getting together. The retired art teacher was one of them that for the last 5 months I hiked with. There were 2 others, a father and son, who had already done the trail twice. They successfully did the trail twice. They were on their 3rd run through. One was a former Marine, the son, and he had seen combat experience, and that was why he was out there, was to kind of reinvigorate himself. You get a little jaded out there, and that's why he was there. And then his father had done it twice as well, a former Army helicopter pilot. And so got to spend about 4 months with those guys, 3-4 months out there with them, and they knew exactly what they were doing out there. And so getting the chance to kind of, I suppose, ride the coattails, but kind of hang out with those guys was a lot of fun. And boy, it was hard though, because they were very mission oriented. We're doing 17 today. We're doing 20 miles today. And so you kind of push yourself a little bit harder than maybe you would otherwise.
Now, was your schedule a little more flexible? I mean, did you get days where you would get up and, I can't do it today. I got to just go put my feet in some ice. I saw some pictures from hotel bathtubs with Jamie packed in ice. I mean, were there days where you're like, I got to do it?
Yeah, Gatlinburg, Tennessee was where you saw that one. It was, we'd gotten off trail, had gone out down into Gatlinburg. It's kind of a touristy area. And so the plan for me was to go down there, stay the night, to get resupplied, and then go back out the next day. I was ready to go the next day, or so I thought. So when I got up when I woke up in the morning, everything hurt so bad, and I wasn't quite sure why. Maybe I pushed myself a little too hard. I don't remember exactly, but I couldn't. I needed to put ice on the knees. I needed to take the ice bath. It was terrible, and it hurt so bad. Popped some ibuprofen and kind of let that swelling go down a little bit. And then the next day I went out, and it had started raining that night. And then the next day it had turned to snow, and so I hiked in snow for the next three days. Melted.
Now, you get your shirt on, Playmaker, that's your trail name. Everybody gets a trail name. How does that work? Do you give yourself a trail name? Do they give you a trail name?
Some people started off, some people maybe not the nicest, start off by maybe trying to give themselves a trail name. Some try to bait you into giving them a trail name. And then there are those of us that, you might be able to get to veto a trail name several times, but sooner or later you're going to get stuck with one. And pretty lucky for me, I ended up meeting this gal who was Ramblin' Rose is her trail name, and just because of the sports thing, and she was like, oh, let's call you Playmaker, and so you get something a little more original, and I was like, that works for me. So I immediately latched onto that and did my best to earn that trail name.
As I'm sure this becomes tough as you continue to go along further and further. As you got towards the end, how much did that drive you that maybe the end is in sight? It's give you some incentive to keep going and no, I can't stop now.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by how not wanting to quit never entered the equation. It was, I need to finish this. I have to finish it. That's how you push yourself through the pain. Former meteorologist Bob Child here at Black Hills Fox had hiked the trail about 20, 30 years ago, and he had given me the best advice. He says about the 4th month, you'll start to question why you're out there. And that was certainly something that I had to deal with, but then it would be, okay, you came out here for a specific reason, you came out here to finish, and all that entails, so just keep going.
Are there emotional swings as you plod along the way? I imagine there would be.
Yeah, I went through every emotion you could possibly, resentment, anger, frustration, elation, joy, pride, you name it. There were days where I would get so frustrated with my body not working the way that I wanted it to, with the way that the trail was routed, with the rocks and the roots, and not getting to see a site that you knew was nearby, but you couldn't do it because you had to stay on trail if you wanted to be considered a through hiker. People that you run into who make you angry, or do something that kind of get in your way. So yeah, every emotion you could possibly think of. I went through it several times, I'm sure, and but now it's now it's just pain, pain and pride.
So what was that emotion like when you finally got to Katahdin, Maine? You're up at the top and you're done.
Fear, it's the what's next, but so much elation too. As I approached the sign, that iconic sign, and then you touch it, I put so much pressure on myself to finish that it was, oh my goodness, and then the weight just fell away. And, some of that frustration was gone. A lot of that frustration was gone, and you just enjoyed that moment. And you have to stop and think. I just spent the last 6 months and 5 days hiking 2,000, almost 2,200 miles. And then the enormity of that really does kind of catch up with you at that point, and filled with an enormous sense of pride.
All right, what happens next? We'll take a look at that when we come back with this month's edition of Focus. I'm Jack Caudill. Welcome back to this month's edition of Focus. We're talking with former Black Hills Fox Sports Director Jamie Zepp, fresh back from a 2,190-mile hike down the Appalachian Trail, an amazing feat. I read about what they call yo-yo hikers. They hike from Georgia to Maine, turn around and go back. Was that a temptation for you when you got to the end?
Nope, not even remotely. Those people, bless their hearts, good for them. They're in far better shape than I am and probably don't have anything to get back to. I was done. I knew my knees were done. Anything more than what I did, no, not even close.
So what do you do now? That's one thing when I tell people about your trip, they say, well, now what's he going to do? What are you going to do? Do you know what you're going to do?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely pretty nebulous right now. I just want to spend the next week. I had 1 week already at doing absolutely nothing except, reacquainting myself with friends and family, and getting a chance to come back here and saying hi, and 1 more week of kind of doing that, maybe putting a little more weight on, not because I necessarily want to, but that's just the way it goes. And then I'll start to unpack it. It's just process everything that I went through, see what lessons I may have learned that I didn't necessarily know while I was out there, and then eventually the plan is to write a book. I have to catalog my videos and my pictures and kind of sort all that stuff out, and then see where the book takes me, and beyond that, I don't know.
To talk about weight, you are certainly obviously a much leaner Jamie Zepp than when you left. How much weight did you lose on the trail?
Yeah, that was probably one of the better parts about the Appalachian Trail is you can eat whatever you want, as much as you want, and as much garbage as you want and still lose weight. At one point I was down 90 pounds. Started, in the last weeks when I was here at Black Hills Fox, I was about 315 pounds. At one point I was around 230, 225. Now, how much those scales are right at that time is up for discussion, but yeah, about 80, 90 pounds at one point.
How's this changed you? Are you a different guy than when you left?
I think you have to be. I think when you put yourself through all this and come out the other side of it, you confirm what you thought you were mentally tougher than what you thought you were. I think I won't know until maybe the opportunity arises that, yeah, you're a much tougher individual than you thought you were, or maybe as tough as you thought you were, and probably some lessons that I learned that I'll be able to use down the line. But yeah, I've nothing but pride in what I've accomplished, and we'll see what the benefits are on the other end, whatever that other end ends up being.
Now there's the Continental Divide Trail, the Pacific Coast Trail. Any more hiking in your future, or is that something you've got out of your system?
I'm never going to say never. There is certainly an opportunity, I think, to hike the Pacific Crest Trail potentially, but at this point, no. I do need to finish the last 55 miles of the Centennial Trail, so I think I'll probably do that at some point, either in the next few months or maybe even next summer. But no, that was one of the things that I kind of had about this whole thing was I never considered myself a hiker. And I kind of still don't. Like, I was just a guy who wanted to take on this ridiculous feat, and I ended up finishing it. But I was one of the weaker hikers, if you want to call it a hiker out there. I just never considered myself a hiker.
I guess one of the weaker hikers that hikes over 2,000 miles, so I think that's all a kind of a relative thing. Yeah. So, but just little things that people don't think about. How many pairs of shoes? Do you go through multiple pairs of hiking shoes along the way?
Yeah, they say you're supposed to trade them out every 500 miles. I got 600 to 700 miles out of the first pair, 500 miles out of the second pair. Bought a third pair that was different from the ones I was using before, and they tore up my feet. It was just a wrong brand for me. I fully believe that it threatened my hike if I had continued. Blisters just shredding my feet so terribly bad that I needed to get rid of those after 4 days. And so then I bought a third pair and probably rode those 200 miles farther than I probably should have.
Now you took a ton of pictures. Anybody who follows you followed the trip on your Facebook page of tons of pictures. So what becomes of those now? The pictures, the videos? Do you have plans for those or?
Yeah, it's part of what I'm planning with the book. I don't know how it's going to work out in terms of like a picture book or video diary kind of thing. I went into this thinking I was going to do more video than pictures, and then ended up doing the exact opposite, where it was more pictures than video. I'll find some uses for them for sure. It may even just be a couple of YouTube entries here and there, but. Yeah, maybe the pictures become a part of the book. I don't know. We'll see how that goes. It's going to have to catalog everything first.
Just about out of time. Any one memory as you look back probably 10, 20 years from now? How are you going to remember this, you think?
Probably the best thing I ever did. I think, just having the pride of finishing something this daunting, I think is going to pay dividends for me down the road, and whatever those dividends end up being, I don't know.
Oh, congratulations. Awesome.
Thanks.
Awesome journey. Very impressive, inspiring to a lot of people. That'll do it for us. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you again next Sunday night for another edition of Focus.